Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. The show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 127. You guys, I have been trying to record for the last 5 minutes, and I don't know what's going on outside. There seems to be a parade of truckers going by and honking their horn, and so I don't know what the cause is behind that or what is going on, but if we hear those distractions in the background, I do sincerely apologize. Another distraction that might come up is, for some reason, my dog Bailey insists on being glued to me today. So I've been trying to get some work done. She insists on being in my office. I have the door closed, so I'm hoping that she is enjoying I filled a little Kong full of peanut butter for her, so I hope that she is enjoying that in another room and can just wait a couple minutes before we're able to go play. So nonetheless, you guys, I am super excited to be jumping on here today. It is a beautiful Saturday when I am recording today's episode. The sun is trying to peek through. This spring has been the weirdest spring I've ever experienced. It literally snowed/hailed 2 days ago. It was freezing cold. I went to the beach yesterday with my brother's girlfriend, and it was absolutely brutal. We ended up having basically a full face mask of sand by the time we left because it was so windy, but nonetheless, we just wanted to get out, explore the beach, and just hope that spring gets the memo that it is time to be warm now. Like, I'm ready for some warm weather. But nonetheless, you guys, I am super excited to dive into today's episode. If you missed last Thursday's episode 126, it was all about 3 questions that you should be asking yourself. I am definitely someone who loves to have tangible questions that someone has already thought of for me that can help me deepen my relationship with myself, that can raise my self-awareness. So if you haven't already checked out that episode, I definitely encourage you to. But for today, number 127, today's episode is one that has really been helping me to think from this new framework of, and so I hope that this lands for all of you guys. And today we're going to talk about how your mood today could be manipulating/affecting your future. As you guys know, I am someone who I enjoy reading most of the time. I'm definitely not someone who can pick up a book any time of day and just dive in. I have to be in the right mood. I have to have a cup of tea with me. I have to have my to-dos done and just being able to fully focus. But when I do read, I always like to have a notebook with me and write down things that stick out to me, to either research them further, to be curious about them, to find other books that are talking about similar topics. And there's a book that I'm listening to right now called The Art of Impossible. I think I talked about it last week on the podcast as well. And it is absolutely blowing my mind. If you have not listened to this book and you are interested in peak performance, growth, becoming the best version of yourself, I 10 out of 10 recommend giving this book a listen or a read. There's this chapter of the book, and I'm going to keep it high level, where they're talking about peak performance. So basically, peak performance would be, what's the best way to describe peak performance? Basically, optimizing for the highest version of yourself. So meaning your habits every day are aspiring towards something. Your habits are aspiring towards something. You are a peak performer. You are showing up holistically in your life as best as possible. And so this book is talking about peak performance and showing up and being the best version of ourselves. And it basically goes into the fundamentals behind when we're not productive. So basically the streams that lead into being the most productive. And basically what they mention is when we're creative, we are going to be more productive. Have you, like, basically think of a time in your life where you've ever been creative? It's almost like other streams of creativity start to flow. It's like that domino effect of once you have momentum of being creative, it becomes, I hate the word easy, but it becomes easier in a way for the next idea, the next thought to be provoked and to keep that momentum going. But basically he goes a layer deeper of that, is basically saying one of the biggest stoppers, the biggest blocks in peak performance is our mood. He explains how our mood affects how we show up. And we all know this intuitively, right? We know that when we're in a bad mood, we don't really want to do anything. When we're in a good mood, we're more aspirational to get after things. And so the goal of today is for you guys to recognize how your mood holistically could be manipulating your future. Meaning, if we are operating at a state that is very negative, it is very limited thinking, very small thinking, very present moment thinking, very sad, stuck, blocked, it's really hard for us to put in the work to aspire towards something. So my goal of today is for you guys to begin to assess for yourself, what is your general mood in your life? Are you someone who carries yourself as a very grateful, ambitious, positive, uplifting person? Or are you someone who carries yourself as, life is out to get me, life sucks, everything sucks, my life is X, Y, and Z. And I want you to know that obviously we're going to have that duality of even on good day we can have a fluctuation of both. But I want you to kind of rate yourself. Are you someone who typically leans on the end of being aspirational, positive? Or are you someone who leans more on the spectrum of being sad and kind of down in your luck, basically? And the reason that I want us to assess that is because the lens in which we look at the world, meaning what our general mood is how we're going to show up. That is, the actions we take are going to be correspondent to how we're feeling. And so as I was sharing from that book, The Art of Impossible, if we are someone who is feeling just depressed all the time, down all the time, lack of motivation, lack of ambition, that is leaking into your productivity. That is leaking into you not being creative. When we're not creative, we're not really making momentum towards anything. Being creative is really the baseline of doing great work because it's your unique way of thinking that is pouring into the work that you are doing. And so what I want all of you guys to do is think about a time in your life, and maybe that's present day right now, where you can think of an example of where your mood was an exact mirror of your results. And so an example that I thought of for my life is when I was in college. I've shared the story before about how my coach was not a kind person. He manipulated me mentally in a lot of ways. Basically, my whole life was a negative spiral because of the outcome of this one individual. It caused me to fail school. I lost relationships. I lost myself. I was just very stuck, very depressed. I was gaining weight. I wasn't healthy, and I wasn't putting in the work. And looking back now, it's because I was in such a low toxic headspace. My brain wasn't able to produce the chemicals that it needed to brighten those parts of my brain that needed to be lit up, to show up as best as possible, to invest in my schoolwork, to go that extra mile. And so it wasn't until I stepped away from that and I started working on myself and feeling better and getting into flow that I was able to get my grades up. I was able to work on myself. I was able to be consistent again. But we can see how when we have that cloud over our head in a way, it diminishes a lot of other areas of our life. And so what I want you guys to do is to pause and reflect again. Where do you typically fall with your mood? What's your ratio of good to bad days? How do you wake up in the morning? Are you someone who wakes up and you're like, frig, another day. Oh, I got to go to work again. Or are you someone who wakes up and you're like, you know what? I'm feeling meh, but I'm going to turn this around. I'm like a 5 right now, but I'm hoping to be a 7. I'm going to do that by doing this thing and that thing. Maybe it's working out, eating your breakfast, whatever it is. What is your ratio of good to bad days? Then what I want you to assess is 0 to 10, how productive of a person are you? And this is going to be correspondent to what your goals are, because a lot of us are only as productive as what we set our goals to be. If we don't have goals, there's really not a need to be overly productive because we're not chasing anything. If you are someone who is overly growth driven, which you most likely are if you're listening to this podcast, I want you to ask yourself 0 to 10, how productive are you typically? And you might even be assessing for yourself in this moment of, you're right. On the hard days, I'm not really as productive. There's days that I'm feeling low that I just want to cuddle up on the couch, watch a movie, and ignore my problems. Knowing that, yes, from a mental health lens, we have to take those days. We have to take that time to honor our body. But I'm talking holistically. How are we setting our future up? Because if we have this narrative, this bias in our brain, and we're showing up like this day after day after day, inevitably the compound effect is going to be taking us in the wrong direction. It's going to be holding us back. And so if we're able to pre-assess what the correspondent of our moods are, we're able to shift that so we can show up differently and pivot our future. If you can hear Bailey in the background, she is at the door again. She is back. You guys, I do not know what's wrong with this girl. She has been out. She has played. She has eaten. She's just being a little bit of a sook. So I'm going to keep assessing. If she gets louder, I'm going to pause and go tend to her to make sure she's okay. But I promise you, she is okay if you hear her crying on the other end of this microphone. The third thing I want you guys to do after you've assessed those is to identify the factors that typically leak into you being in a bad mood. I want you to label them. What are the factors that leak into that? Is that your job? Is that your friends? Is that your relationship? Is it yourself? Is it your physical appearance? Is it your home? Is it your nutrition? Is it your habits? What is it specifically that is pouring into when you're in a bad mood? What typically makes you flick into a bad mood? For me, we all have lots of things, but to think of some of the main things that really wire me the wrong way is when someone is blatantly ignorant for no reason. That just gets me shifted into a bad mood. When I do not have enough sleep, I am cranky. When I am hungry and I notice my blood sugar levels are dropping, I get into a bad mood. When my house is messy, that bothers my productivity, that directly pours into me not showing up the best of my ability. And the last one for me is when I'm not keeping promises to myself. If I broke a promise today to myself, that likely tomorrow is going to show up in my mood because a part of me subconsciously knows that I can be better. So that right there is 5 examples of how, for me specifically, I know when one of those 5 things are poked, my mood's probably not that great. And so I know that until I pivot those 5 things, tend to those 5 things, bring awareness to those 5 things, I know directly right there if one of those is at play, my productivity in the present moment is taking a hit, meaning somewhere's down the line in the future, it is also taking a hit. Just because we can't see the ripple of how something is affecting us doesn't mean it's not affecting us. For example, we eat bad food. Today I eat bad food. Tomorrow I eat bad food. The next day I eat bad food. I'm not really going to see a difference day to day, but long-term, week to week, month to month, year to year, you will see that difference, the compound of that. And so the goal of this is to get ahead of that. How can we stop right now those things that are pouring into you not showing up as best as possible and coming at it from a lens of that emotional lens, because that's something that we can control if we're willing to be curious and be detectives and dig to find out what it is. Number 4 is I want you guys to figure out what is no longer in alignment that might be subconsciously manipulating your mood, aka your progress. So what are the things that might not be in alignment that are subconsciously bothering you? So not to hate on my last relationship, because I have nothing but love for that phase of my life, but there was a part of me that knew that it wasn't in alignment anymore. And I stuck around longer than I should have, knowing that it was actually a detriment to my mental health. And again, I am not hating on my ex. He is a wonderful person, but I knew that that relationship was no longer in alignment for me anymore. And so subconsciously, every day there was a part of me that knew that I wasn't in alignment, and it was bringing my focus elsewhere. What are those things in your life that you know on some degree they're no longer in alignment, but you try to ignore them? The more that we ignore the things that aren't in alignment, the louder they're going to get. The louder it's going to become that we need to tend to them, right? So what are those things that might be out of alignment for you that are subconsciously likely bothering you more than you realize? And my fifth and final point, what do you need to do to shift this? What do you need to do in your life? What conversation do you need to have? What action do you need to take? What thing do you need to remove from your life? What do you need to implement into your life? What is it that you need to do as a 1% improvement that will shift your mood for you? Think of that one thing that you labeled as the biggest factor pouring into your mood. How can we shift that by 1%? If on that question you had a list of things, I had 5 things right off the get-go. How can I focus on one of those at a time? Which one of them shows up the most common? And how can I tend to that one first? And then notice how you feel. Notice how you're showing up. So much of us have so much going on behind the scenes, going on in our personal life, going on with our family, going on with finances. And then when we get to work and we show up and we're wondering why we can't concentrate, no duh. Your brain is somewhere else. Your mood has been manipulated, not in a bad way, but it's taken somewhere else. It's been taken off the rails. How we show up productively is when we're in alignment and when we're present. We can't be present if our mind is worrying subconsciously about all these other things. Are they out of alignment? Are they no longer serving you? Do you have control of them? Can you set aside time every day to have worry time? Meaning for 5 minutes a day, you just allow yourself to worry. You allow your brain to worry so that you can then switch your attention, pivot your direction to focus on things that you need to focus on so you can be the most productive, so that you can show up better, which in a lot of ways will actually influence your mood, making it better, because when we have results, that lights up a part of our brain, that dopamine is released. We feel good when we do that. What is that block that we need to get out of the way so that you can pour into yourself, so that can re-pour into your emotions, how you're showing up, and setting your future self up for success? I truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. This was a super, super fun one for me to research, to brainstorm, and I hope that it landed for you all. And I hope you all know that our moods play such a vital role in our productivity. Knowing that it's okay to have hard days where we need to just take a back seat and tend to what's going on. But this can happen day in and day out. And until we bring awareness to it and notice that it's happening, it can be controlling your life more than you realize. I just helped a client last week finally narrow down on the thing that was stopping her subconsciously from taking that next step in her life. If you're looking for support with this, I still have 1 spot left for a 3-month trial client, absolutely free. There is no strings attached. All I would ask at the end of that, if you are no longer interested, is to just share a testimonial, how I supported you, how the journey was for you. And so there's no strings attached. If you're looking for a coach to help you get to that next level from a trauma-informed lens, there is a link below to book a free 30-minute call. I would absolutely love to connect with you, see how I can support you on getting to that next phase of your life. I truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I look forward to chatting with you all on Thursday. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.